Welcome to the Catalyst Sale podcast. This is a continuation of a series that started yesterday, where I'm bringing on a group of experts who have a background either in research or as practitioners related to a specific set of topics. These are topics that you may be thinking about now as you're going through different transitions in work, or you will be thinking about at some point soon. Today, I've got Brent Schlenker. Brent is a community builder. He is the founder of the Learn Train community, a community that he launched just a little bit under a year ago. And Brent, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me. It's going to be a good conversation.
So what is community?
So I would say I think there's all sorts of very technical answers out there, but in general, I would call it that a community is just simply a gathering of people around a specific purpose or context.
And what are some common mistakes that we make when thinking about or even describing or getting involved in community?
I think the biggest mistake especially when we're talking about it in terms of business, right? And wanting to start a community because of a business need or an idea because it's pretty trendy right now, that you can buy a tool or you can buy a community thing and you can turn it on and you'll have community. I think that's the biggest mistake, and the misunderstanding that, in business, we're very structured and we're very regimented and we want to have outcomes. We want to have goals and we want to track everything. And a community is much more human centered. And there's a lot of things that just happen serendipitously. And the mistake is trying to manage it like you do all of your other projects, because you cannot be successful doing that.
So why do we make these mistakes?
I think just because this is the way we are. We're not used to human things, community type things in the workplace. The workplace is very structured. It's very regimented. There's a plan for everything. There's a strategy for everything. There is a known methodology that is supposed to make certain that things happen at a certain time, because we know there's going to be a certain number of sales and we know there's a certain number of widgets that are being produced. We can sell those things out there. Communities don't work that way. It is a much more sort of democratic process, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't.
So how can we avoid these mistakes?
I think step one is changing the mindset of what is it that you expect to get out of the community, how long you expect it to take. It always ends up taking way longer than anybody expects. And it never follows the pattern of the person that you learned from that you wanted to do it. Your community will not be like theirs. Theirs is not going to be like yours. And that's by design. Every community becomes a community because of the unique context and the unique purpose for you to be creating that community. And you don't even get to decide whether or not it becomes a community. Everybody either decides on their own that they're going to come and join you, or they don't. That's the trick.
So, and when you think about this in the context of work, at work, you've got this self-created community because we're all in this environment or this ecosystem together. When you think about this in the context of working from home and going remote, how does community start to change?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that we take for granted the hallway meetings, the bumping into somebody on the way to the restroom, the water cooler, the conversation, how easy it is to just pop your head over the cubicle wall and say hi to somebody. How's your day? To see them walking down the hall and go, oh, I got a question for you, and be able to chase them down and go, I totally forgot about this, right? You miss those types of serendipitous moments. And those are the things that I've been trying really hard through building communities to help people to understand that you can create those opportunities. You just have to be open to creating an environment that allows for that serendipitous conversation to exist. And it's a totally different mindset shift.
So then if you take that mindset and you start looking at it in the context of community from the standpoint of customers, those are outside of your organization, teams, those people who are inside your organization, so kind of internal and external customers, and then even self, how does the definition, how does the mindset, how does things shift when looking at it through those three distinct perspectives?
Yeah, so I think you hit on it earlier when we were chatting that the communities already exist, whether you want them to or not. They already exist. And I think we hadn't mentioned size yet, right? There's a community can be a small group of people, a medium-sized group of people. It can be hundreds of thousands of people. It can, we all belong to many, 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 many different communities, some that we don't even realize is, oh yeah, that is a community that I belong to, right? And so a customer community is a community. It already naturally exists. When those people bump into each other, they have a shared reason to be talking because they're using your product, your software. They already have a connection. When was the last time you bumped into somebody that had an Apple device and you have an Apple device and you didn't go, hey, yeah, right, he's an Apple person, right? And you can totally relate, right? That's a community that's been built over a customer base. And every product has that. Everyone does. And so what you try to do by using technology is to just enhance the value of that community and give those community members a reason to be proud to be part of your product and your community. The community exists already in your customer service department, and those customers, they're already connected. They already kind of feel like they're a community. You need to now start engaging the rest of your business in that as much as possible, open up conversations a little bit more, and try to figure out how to make that valuable, because the tools are here to make some incredible progress with customers. It's a little different for your internal employees and your internal staff. That type of community and how you manage it and run it is going to be very different than how you manage and drive an external community. And then for yourself as a person, I think individually, I think everybody needs to get comfortable with the tools. I think that's the first thing. And the only way you get comfortable with these things is to jump in and to use them, engage with the tools, as frivolous as it might feel at first. And you might feel like, yeah, this is a waste of time. Why does it take so long? I know what I want. I'm a very strict, regimented person, and I shouldn't have to wait for serendipitous joy to occur. But if you give it long enough chance and you engage and you embrace the social nature of a community, you will start to, when those moments happen, they're magic. When something really, just trying to think of a good word, just really impactful on your business or impactful on your thinking occurs randomly because a whole bunch of people just happen to be having a conversation. When you notice it happen, you will feel it and you will know it. I can guarantee you. And it will change how you think about this stuff.
It seems like there's and I'm going to use the wrong word here, and then it's going to sound like a pun, but there's a connection between community and connection. Is that the case?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Right. And then this is what keeps us human, right? We have to stay connected to people. It's in our nature. I mean, I think the technology had the coronavirus sort of situation happened, 30, 40 years ago, it would have been exceptionally difficult and complicated. It's like when the power goes out in your house nowadays and you can't get connected anywhere, and you can't turn on all your digital devices, and all of a sudden you have to entertain 3 kids and for 8 hours before everything comes back on. It's like, that's hard, right? But we've got this technology. People like myself and others have been working from home, joking about social distancing for the last 20 years. What's wrong with people? How come they can't do it? We've been doing it forever, And the technology makes it possible. And not only does it make it possible, it makes it super effective, efficient, and if you manage it right and you take the veil of fear away, it becomes just like you're working in the office with folks, and just like you're hanging out with your friends at the bar, or just like you're talking to the customers trying to solve their problem.
So, Brent, if people want to learn more about community, or maybe do some research on their own, are there any resources that you'd recommend, or places that they can go, or things that you'd suggest they look into, even if they want to go find community that's the right fit for them?
Yeah, I would just say, just go. You just got to look around. I mean, they're all over the place. I mean, one could say if you have a favorite blog, that's a community. There's probably a whole bunch of people that go to that blog also, like you, and gravitate towards that person or that group of people's content. And so all of the people that read it on a regular basis, you've all built a common bond there. A podcast is the same way. Find your favorite podcast and see if that podcaster has a community or a social space where people can talk after the latest episode goes on, right? I mean, there's community isn't just about this one tool called community. Oh, let's go buy an enterprise community tool. It's not that. It's all of these things that we do where we have a common interest and a common goal. There is a community being built around that, and just ask and connect, and people will point you in the right direction.
Awesome. Well, Brent, thanks for joining the podcast today. I will include links in the show notes to the Learn Train. People like to see what you're working on, and links to what you share on Twitter. If anybody would like Brent and I to continue this conversation, to go a bit deeper, with some more back and forth like we would traditionally do on a podcast episode, please let us know. Happy to do it. Brent, thank you.
Hey, my pleasure. Yeah, I could talk about this all day. So if anybody wants to, feel free to ask.